Hello.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. How you
We
doing?
yeah, I'm good. It's quite funny because we always say we're lucky that no one's jumped on this yet because we always say we're going to start recording our podcast at 7 o'clock. It is now 25 to wait because we've just been chatting for the last 35 minutes about business and stuff. So yeah, I guess what we should really start doing is recording the podcast first and then chat about business after, just in case people actually do jump on at some point. Might be a good idea.
Yeah, I do forget about that. Imagine somebody's just been listening to us chat shit for 30 minutes.
They probably got some value somewhere along the way, to be completely honest. But yeah, I'm not too sure. I got a message from one of my clients earlier on saying she loved the last episode about mindset, but this client of mine, hello, can I say your name? Yeah, of course I can. You'll love it. Hello, Amanda. Um, I know you'll be listening. And there was one comment I came out with, and Amanda used to be part of the clergy. She was a vicar. And I said in the last episode, what would Jesus do? And she found that highly entertaining, but she suggested that I change it to what would Jack do? So,
She calling you Jack? Is she calling you Jesus?
well, I mean, I don't know. In a roundabout way, though, I guess she kind of is.
Do you,
So
do you know that Josh is actually Jesus?
that explains a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Shame you can't
In
walk on water. That would make your next challenge.
Maybe swim easier. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, tell her
Ladies
about
and
it.
gentlemen, my name is Jack Buffery. This is the awesome Josh Parkin. We are the founders and creators of Horizon Strength, and we are here to make your life more interesting and a hell of a lot stronger.
Yeah. If you want to get super fit, super strong, and do cool stuff, then we're here. But today, Jack, we're going to be talking about training, just training in general, exercise, how we can get into exercise, some things we recommend to remain consistent and be doing exercise for life.
So last episode was all about mindset, and
Hmm.
one of the things that we didn't mention, especially when it comes to training, one of the most important mindset attitudes to have with this is the best training program you can do is one that you're going to stick to. So that means it's got to be something you like, right? Or something that you know the outcome is so important to you, you will stick to it. So if you take last week's mindset lesson towards this, and when we're talking about training, but we're not talking specifically about adventure readiness training in this particular episode. We're talking about all types of training. So we are obviously massive advocates for exercises that have a direct carryover to an adventure ready life. But let's be honest, there's no exercises really that are going to have an adverse effect on an adventure ready life. Some are just better than others, right?
Yep, some are just better than others. Um, there's a lot of people out there that hate on a lot of stuff. Um, we're not really those kind of people in terms of exercises. As if you're doing something, it's better than now. Apart from those classes where you're attached to a bungee to the ceiling, and you're not actually doing anything and just flying around the room. I think that's stupid.
Bitch, please, I would try that straight
No,
away.
you would. You'd be like that. You'd be flying around the room, going
Yeah.
woo.
Imagine if you could get jacked doing that. I'd be installing one everywhere. I'd be like, there's a
That
tree,
that'd
I'm
be
gonna
the
attach bungees to that.
yeah, that'd be the dream, wouldn't it? Just float around.
That'd be
Yeah.
good. Um,
No, I'm
so
only kidding. Anything that gets you fit and active is great. But yes, we're not very prejudiced.
we're not that like we're not dogmatic about ways to get fit and healthy. So I think one of the clearest ways to kind of highlight that is the fact that before we I'm gonna say it, before we found our calling with Horizon and like adapted our brand to becoming adventure ready, and it really resonated with the both of us. It's like, okay, finally we got a freaking we understand what it is we've been looking for in terms of training. But before that, it's not that we didn't like the other types of training. It's just they didn't resonate as hard with us. But we have tried them all. We have been, especially as personal trainers as well. You almost feel obliged to do the things that you get your clients to do. So we have done everything. The only thing I can't do is Zumba because I've got no bloody coordination for dance. But I've tried everything else.
Mate, I've actually attended a Zumba class and I was phenomenal at it. I'm just saying.
So Josh has got snake hips. I swear to God, if I had a video of you in that pub that night when you got up, Josh actually twerked a woman off the stage. Like he got up there, he was shaking his hips and his booty so much that he twerked a woman off stage. It was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never seen anything quite like it.
Fuck's sake. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I know what you mean. I've like tried powerlifting, kind of modified strongman, tried played around with calisthenics, bodybuilding, with CrossFit, you know, kind of everything really. Long distance endurance. We've done a bit of a mix of it all, and it's like you said, it's the way of the PT because it's like that shiny object. Everything looks really cool and you want to try it all. It's actually one of the I just put out an email list called 7 lessons from 10,000 hours of coaching, and one of the lessons is the mistake that I've made through my training is, if anything, I've I've jumped around too much
Hmm.
without staying in one particular area for long enough. Um, So yeah, it can be easy with everything out there to want to do everything.
Yeah, it really can. And the other thing about becoming a PT as well is that we really want our clients to get good at stuff. Now, the problem is we're such good trainers, we're such good coaches that quite often, if our client's focus is on something that we're not currently focusing on at that given time, and they get better at it than us, that automatically flips a switch in my head that's like, fuck,
Yeah,
I should be able to do that. Should I be training like that now as well? Like we as coaches, we also have these things in our head that are saying, "Oh, switch and switch and switch." But yeah, it's
mm.
quite interesting to see that. Go on. I was going to say, so what is if you had to sum up or sorry, if you had to think about all of the training you've done pre-Horizon, what would you say has been your most popular recurring theme in your training? Like, was it strongman? Was it powerlifting? Was it bodybuilding? Like, what has been your strongest recurring theme?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think probably the two that I flip between the most. No, I don't know actually. God, I've done so many ridiculous stuff. Um, Jeez, I for a while, and this was like early days CrossFit before they had like the big CrossFit games. I remember one of the first CrossFit games was like 20 people in a field, just like doing random workouts. So that's when we started like playing around with CrossFit. And then it was that kind of style of training where I wouldn't really call it CrossFit, but it was just like hard conditioning and getting strong.
Hmm.
I think that style of training has probably been my predominant. Has always gone back to that, where it's like get strong. There's a little bit of like pump in there, and then conditioning. That's
Hmm.
probably been the main focus of training. I guess you can call it CrossFit-esque or athleticism, maybe
Mm.
that kind of style of stuff. Because I've always wanted to be able to like lift heavy, jump far, die. That's that's
Hmm.
essentially what it is. But I guess at the bare bones of it, it's powerlifting, bodybuilding, and conditioning on top.
Yeah,
That's always
fair.
been the kind of where I always end up going back to, that kind of amalgamation of those three things. Um, and then every time I try something niche, I'll do that for a while, but it never sticks. Like I tried handstands and arm wrestling and all this other random stuff, martial arts, all that sort of stuff, but they've never sticked as long as that.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Mine's, of course, it is very similar. I would say power building is like the my
Yeah.
go-to. So I would say I'd probably say like 70% powerlifting with 30% bodybuilding. That would be the route that I've tended to go to the most often, if I'm honest. Because it's never been for the goal of getting massive. That's never been my intention. I much prefer the surprising people by looking good, looking like I work out, but surprising people with more strength than what people my size can usually have,
Mm.
if that makes sense. I love that shock value. For me, I liken it to a standard car, but putting a beast of an engine in it. Like and it surprises people by how it can do, like what it can perform like. So that's what I like the ability to be able to do.
In our in the old gym that we used to work at, I used because we had the equipment, it was a lot more like modified strongman based
Hmm.
stuff. Because we had the log, the yoke, sled, farmers, all that sort of stuff, Atlas stones. Like then I did a lot more of that, but just because it was more readily available, that kind of stuff is that equipment is quite niche, and it's
Hmm.
very rare that you find a gym that's got it all. And it's if you want to buy it yourself, it's quite expensive. But
Yeah, that used to
yeah,
be
no,
my almost my conditioning phase, I guess. So I'd do power building for like 4 months, and then every now and then I'd throw in like, I don't know, 4 to 8 weeks of strongman, but very conditioning heavy strongman and stuff like that. So
I don't think there's a better form of conditioning than modified strongman.
no, it's really not like if you're even like some of that I would say has carried over into our programming for Horizon because it aligns itself very, very well with that. Obviously, depending on what kind of adventure activities you're wanting to do, we usually advocate a bit more um, conditioning without the extra weight gain, if that makes sense. Because if you look at a lot of strong men, they're just massive, gigantic human beings. We're more about like the speed and the conditioning side of things rather than just the brute power of it, like say the modified strongman stuff. And that just really it builds an engine, but in that horrible word I'm going to use in that functional way. Like it is just such a good way to train.
Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, people don't like the word functional, but it's like power building or functional bodybuilding. It's kind of that aspect of training's pretty where I guess I would stand. I guess the question would be then is like what we've just talked about can be quite confusing for people, right? Like
Hmm.
what we just described an amalgamation of multiple different modalities and training styles, and it's like, oh my god, how do I even think about doing that? That's nuts. So where would be a good place for people who are wanting to get into training and want it to be a successful journey? Where's a good place to start and move forwards?
So if they had no preconceptions of what they wanted to do already, then I would suggest everybody, men and women, young and old, start with a very simple training plan, like a 5x5, just to develop a base level of strength.
Hmm.
Because we've said this many, many times in relation to many, many things. When you have a baseline of something, it makes it so much better to make an informed decision of where to take it next. Strength should be at the base of everything else that you do. It doesn't have to be ultimate strength, but at least a base level of strength. A very simple. So, for those who don't know, 5x5 usually consists of the big lifts plus a couple of extras. So, you'd be looking at a deadlift, a squat, a bent over row, an overhead press, bench press, and usually a pull up would be in there as well. Sometimes dips and you get other modified versions, but they would be the main ones. And you simply do that for 5 sets of 5 and gradually raise the weight each week until you start to plateau. There is no better way to have an introduction to strength training in my eyes. I think it is such a superb and simple way to follow it that it just works. But when you get to a certain point in that, when you understand your body more, what it can and can't do, that's when you almost earn the right to start exploring more. That's only though if you're starting from a place where you've got no idea what you want to do. If you've got an idea what you want to do, then probably start there first.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess one of the questions people would ask then is, that's great, me getting strong, but what about my cardiovascular ability? Yeah, I'm wanting to be able to do something like a marathon or a long hike or a summit a mountain or not. Yeah, I just want to have better cardiovascular function. I want my heart to be healthier. Um, can they still do that whilst getting stronger?
Yeah, I mean, don't let me take all the answers to these questions. Just butt in when you want to. But if people want to do that, I would say run twice a week. Do one run of like 20-minute intervals, and then one 5K or one 3K. Like start wherever you can. Again, build that baseline. Exactly the same format as the strength. Build the baseline. Work from there.
I would say even simpler than that for some people is that if you are hitting between 10,000 and 14,000 steps a day on top of the training, and you're just wanting to like keep your heart healthy and maybe hike for longer, that's probably going to be fine while you're getting stronger. Like most people don't move that much.
Mm-hmm.
Like the amount of people we get in and do like 5,000 steps a day, if you can up it to 10,000 or more, that's going to improve your cardiovascular ability just generally from moving more. So yes, it's not like a specific cardio workout, but just to start with, getting stronger and moving more is going to improve all of that. And then when you start to have more energy, and because it all kind of comes together in one, right? You start to train more, you generally start to eat a little bit better, you sleep at the right time, you're moving more, everything starts to feel better. Then you can think about, oh, maybe I'll add another workout, which is just going to be a bit cardio, and it might just be 10 minutes on the end of your workout. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it.
And look, if you are starting from a baseline of not much, you could definitely attest to this, Josh. I know I can. 5 sets of 5 heavy squats will have you fucking breathless. Like
Yeah,
it's hard work.
yeah,
And I was when I first started doing 5x5, I also started doing park runs as well. And
nice.
just the nature of squatting improved my park run ridiculously. Like it knocked 10 minutes off of my time. It got me from 31 minutes down to like 21:05. Oh, obviously that was a mixture of the improved cardiovascular as well, but
Yeah.
it was just the heavy squats that were making my legs stronger. And when you do
Mhm.
25 squats, even if they're split up by 5 sets of 5, it does improve your cardiovascular capability as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what people need to think of here is like it can really be that simple. So training 3 times a week, doing those 5x5 workouts where you're focusing on strength. And what's really important for people who are new to the gym, and what it sometimes takes people a long time to realize, but the sooner you can realize the better, is that you need to be progressing the training. There needs to be a level of intensity to the training. So if you're going in and you're doing 5x5 and like, yeah, the first couple of sessions is going to be hard, but then you never change the weight, right? You stay on like 30 kilos squatting and you never change the weight because you feel like you're getting comfortable now and it's easy. That's when problems start to occur. So what we need to do is make sure, even on the simple workouts, that there's a level of intensity there where it's challenging. And I don't mean like you're dying every session. That's not necessary, but it's hard.
Hmm.
And then you'll really start to see improvement. That's what um and it's very rare actually nowadays. We talk about research, but a lot of research that's come out over the years on different things that you should be doing. Um, one of the biggest things that pops up is that the people with the most success and people that gain the best results work at a relatively high intensity in their training. And that doesn't mean that you need to be doing HIIT training. That means that you just need to be finding it hard.
Hmm.
And that's as simple as that.
So I'm kind of liking this theme at the moment. Let's carry on with the 5x5 because I've got a
Yeah.
really simple way for people to discover this.
Yeah.
So if you're brand new to training, if you've never trained before, and you
Mm-hmm.
want to start doing a 5x5, all you need to do with all these lifts is start with the empty bar, and then next time you do that lift, add 1.25 kilos onto the bar. If it was really, really easy, add 2.5 kilos onto each end of the bar. Even if you take that approach, which might seem really slow, I guarantee within 8 weeks you're going to have a great idea of where your intensity level lies, and then you will have so much more bodily self-awareness that you'll have a great idea of where to take your intensity levels to. It does not have to be a complicated process. Literally, that was my introduction to weight training. It was 5x5. It wasn't an empty bar, granted, but I started with a certain weight on the bar and I just added 2.5 kilos every time. So I would do an A-B split and I would train 3 times a week. So that meant week one would be workout A, workout B, workout A again. Week two would be workout B, workout A, workout B
Mm.
again. Okay, so following that process of just adding 2.5 kilos to the bar every single session I could got me up to a 175 kilo squat. Now, that's ridiculous considering I started with, I think it was probably, I don't know, 30 kilos on the bar to begin with.
Yeah.
And it was that gradual process. And yes, there are ways to overcome plateaus, but we don't need to go into that now. That is something you will probably intuitively work out as you go through it. But if you do want to know, pop us a message, that's fine. But
Mm.
something as simple as that, it doesn't have to be a complicated system to really start to understand how to get strong.
Yeah. A general rule of thumb. So I have two clients I train at the same time, Annabelle and Shelley, who I've shown on my socials quite a lot, and they're horrendous for like not wanting to put weights up. They'll go,
Mhm.
"Oh no, this is too hard. It's too hard." So I have a rule. I have a steadfast rule, and that is, if you complete every set and every rep with good form at the same weight, then next week something is changing. And whether that is we add more reps, one of the sets, the weight increases, whatever it is, the stimulus needs to change because if you've completed it. So think of it, so you've got 5x5 at 30 kilos, and you do every single set, you do 5 reps, and every single set it looks spot on and looks fine. Next week, even if it's just a fifth set, it's going up.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'm doing 32 and a half. I don't care. You're doing something more because it's almost like you've got a to-do list, you've ticked it off. So now on to the next achievement because you've completed that quest.
So it's a great segue. It's a great segue. Let's talk variables. So for people who don't know
Hmm.
variables, it's not simply weight. Weight is not the only variable you can adjust to get all these things. So why don't you kick off with some of the variables that we've got?
Yeah, so obviously weight is one, everything getting heavier is one. We can do that. Another one is increasing the reps at that weight. So say you're doing 5x5, a way to show you've improved is if you did 6 reps, 7 reps, 8 reps, 9 reps more. Doing that up, your capacity is getting better. And the more weight you can do at higher reps just means the more muscle you're going to build. Another one is going to be tempo.
Hmm.
So what that means is sometimes when trainers will mention tempo, it's the speed at which you do the rep. So the slower you do a rep, the harder it's going to be. Because is what we call time under tension. You're spending more time under that load, so it's getting harder for the muscles. So if we're doing it at a normal pace and just pumping those reps out and getting 5, but then we slow that right down and maybe put a count of 5 in on the way down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, all of a sudden way harder. Um, then you have variables like alternating limbs. So, say you're doing a dumbbell bench press. If you did alternating, that's potentially going to be a bit harder. Or adding stuff like instability. So, with a barbell, you can add bands with a plate hanging off, and it becomes a bit of what we'd call like a chaos bar. So, it's wobbly while you're pressing it. That's hard. Um, you also have pauses, so you can pause anywhere during the rep for a certain amount of seconds to make it harder. Sticking with a bench press, if you paused on your chest for 2 seconds and then pressed, all of a sudden the reps are a lot harder. Any variables from yourself? I'll keep riffing.
Yeah, closely related to reps is sets. So
Yes.
if you want to start increasing the volume, so volume is incredibly important per body part, but we're not going to go into the specifics of that now. But if you want to increase the volume, then you can add more sets as well. So that would naturally increase the reps, but not onto the end of each set. Instead, it's adding a completely new set as well. Um, The other one is range. So, for instance, I
Yes.
see this a lot in squats. A lot of the time, I will take my clients up to where their current maximal range, maximal strength is on a squat. But what would have happened on the journey of getting there a lot of the times is that they're not fully arse to grass. Their thighs are breaking parallel, which means their hip crease is below their knee, but they're not getting all the way as far down as they can. So sometimes I'll drop the weight by 30% and then make sure they're hitting that deepest range they possibly can. Especially for the type of training we do now, I think extra range, as much range as we can get out of people, is incredibly important for the lifestyles we're trying to create. Go on, you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say a couple of exercises that really show that up is like step ups on a box. Yeah, the higher the box is, the fucking harder it is. Or like a deficit deadlift where you stand
Mm-hmm.
on a platform but the bar's still on the floor. Then you're deadlifting from a lot lower. Good examples of how you can improve range.
And so, hand in hand with range, especially for something like a bench press, is you can also change the equipment. With a barbell, you're limited by where the bar is going to hit your chest, unless you use, I always forget what the curved bar is called,
Cambered
uh,
bar.
hammered bar, unless you use one of those. But if you use a set of dumbbells, you're not only just testing the strength of each of your each side, but you're also able to get a slightly deeper range because your hands are able to drop further than your chest. Basically, with all, oh, and the last one is something that I always think people overlook all the fucking time, and it annoys me, is rest breaks. Nothing annoys me more is when people just want to jump straight back into it. I shouldn't annoy me because people just don't know, but the body has very specific um, energy production mechanisms at play. And if you are too quick of your rest, you're basically just making cardio. You're just basically making the lifts more cardiovascular based. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to achieve a specific outcome, especially in strength, you need to respect recovery between sets as well.
Yeah, I mean, as an example of that, if you're looking at the strongest people in the world, you look at all like Brian Shaw, Hatfield Bjornsson for World's Strongest Man, when they're doing like sets of deadlifts, they're deadlifting so heavy, like in the 300 to 400 kilos in their working sets, that they rest anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes in
Mm-hmm.
between sets, and they may have only done one rep, and they're resting between 5 and 10 minutes. Imagine like a lot of people like can barely rest for 30 seconds and
Mm-hmm.
it's generally for strength, and when you're lifting heavy you're looking between like you're looking at 2 minutes
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and
Yeah.
if you're depending on the kind of weight you're doing.
Usually, if you're training anywhere, and this isn't always true, but there's a very strong correlation between the lower the reps, the more rest you want. So if you're doing a 1 rep max, you're looking at a 3 minute minimum rest break. Usually, if it's a proper max out, and more likely 5 minutes. Um, if you're doing something like 5 minutes, then you want anywhere between like a minute and a half and 2 minutes. Sorry, 5 reps. You want anywhere between like a minute and a half and 2 minutes. And then when you get to like bodybuilding reps, then you can start playing a little bit shorter, anywhere from 30 seconds, still up to a minute and a half, to be honest, depending on what kind of intensity you're putting in there as well. But rest breaks, if you understand how to manage your energy systems, you will get way more out of your workout. And that all comes down to the amount of rest you take between sets.
I would say then the ultimate variable, after all of those, you have all of these that we just lifted off. There's quite a few there. The then final ultimate variable, which is I then when people get to like that intermediate to expert level of training, is the amount of days they specifically train. So, for instance, Sam, who I've been training for years now, he started off on 2 to 3 days a week training, and he now flits between 4 and 6 days. And when you can get to the point where you can train every muscle group twice a week, which is something I like to do with people who are at that like higher level in their training, when they can get to training every muscle group twice a week, that's when things really do start to change. This is change, sorry. This is like 1, 2, 3 years down the line.
And also
But
highly result specific as well.
very result specific.
Hmm
Yeah, but this is as once you've played with all of those other variables, there's always more. There's always something else there's always another secret weapon you can pull out and use. But that's what's so good about it is you think you're going to get bored, but it's always another trigger to pull. So
Hmm.
like play around with what you've got.
So, right, let's use an example here, and this is going to be such a straightforward example. Let's say you're bench pressing
Hmm.
and you are doing a 5x5, like what we were saying, and you start to plateau. In fact, I'm going through this with a client right now. The only difference is it's a narrow grip bench press. But so what we've done, because she's plateauing on 5x5, I've dropped it to 3 sets of 3. Okay, so we've plateaued 2 weeks in a row on 5x5. So I've dropped to 3x3. Next week we're going to try for 4 sets of 3, and then if she
Hmm.
gets that, next week after we'll go for 5 sets of 3, and then we'll start going to 5 sets of 4 until she can get that next weight, and then we
Hmm.
might go back to 5x5, but I don't think we will back then. But that is just such a clear way. And once you've been through that process, you've overcome the plateau again, maybe you change it to a dumbbell bench press where you're working on range at a lower weight, which you naturally will at a dumbbell anyway. But I usually find that people come out stronger after a phase of dumbbell pressing anyway. So all of these things, even if you understand three of the different variables you can change, you will more than likely be able to overcome any plateau that you face within reason. Like if you're trying to lift 400 kilos, then things start to get a little bit different. That's when you start looking at sleep, nutrition, and every single recovery factor in the world.
Yeah, another thing that I find that sometimes people end up lacking in when they're doing specific strength training is they start to lack in their like capacity and their like level of fitness with that specific exercise. So one thing that I found's been really good to push them past the point mentally and physically when they start to plateau is I put in last set AMRAP. So it's as many reps as possible as they can for the last set. Um, and that builds like your ability to be able to push past the point, because quite often people mentally get stuck in a spot and they don't push past it when they probably could have.
Hmm.
They'll hit a number and it's like, oh, I can only ever hit 4 on this way, and that's what they get stuck in their head, so they only ever do 4. But then when you start putting in like last set failure, um they push past that, and it's like you're not. I used to sometimes set a rule is you're not allowed to land on a 5, 10, 15, or 20. It has to. You can't land on a round number. You just got to keep going. Um, and that seems to push them past it mentally, but also just builds a bit more capacity um, through that muscle and through that exercise, which I found a really good like plateau breaker for some people. I got it from Juggernaut actually. It's a Juggernaut thing.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think yeah. So yeah, it's good.
I think if you have a coach and you're plateauing, one of the key benefits of having a coach is they can really fuck with you because we do this. Um, we One of the things I will often do, I tried tricking myself before, and I have pulled it off a couple of times on the deadlift, is I won't tell them what the weight is on the bar for a start. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not going to tell you what the weight is on the bar, just lift it. That's how I managed the build up to the 235. But to be honest, 235 kilo deadlift, but I did actually find out it was 235, and that's what made me lift it in the end, purely because it made me the strongest coach in the gym we used to work at. Because someone before me, Callum, I think it was, had got
Mm,
a
yeah,
232.5. So
sumo
yeah.
though. He was a sumo lifter.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. I feel even more justified.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is so your coach can mess with you to help you bust through plateaus. The other thing that I have noticed, and similar to what you were just saying, Josh, is that some people get a stigma in their head about that last rep. So if they know they've got to do 5 reps, that fifth rep will be really, really hard for them. So sometimes I'm just like, awesome, cool, aim for 8. And
Hmm.
then I'm happy after they've got to 5. I'm not going to tell them that though. Like it's
Yeah.
let's get to the 8. So yeah, us coaches do have sneaky ways of tricking you into progressing past plateaus.
It's also the beauty of having a spotter with specific
Mm,
exercises. So with bench specifically, talking about bench and squats actually, is there was it was, what's he called? What's it called? The sciencey strength website.
Not Menno
Strong,
Hands.
strong by science or stronger
Oh,
by
Strong by
science
Sight.
or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they had a study on spotters, and I think
Hmm.
it was that with a spotter, on average, people got one or two more reps,
Makes
um,
sense.
which makes sense. And what you want to really try and do, just experiment with like benching with a spotter and just going till you can't go anymore. And you find if you were doing it on your own, you'd probably stop one or two reps, or even maybe 4 or 5 reps early, because you think that you're just going to get stuck. Whereas if you have a spotter, you keep going and you go to the point where you literally can't move it off your chest, and there's
Hmm.
always a few more reps in there than you think.
Yeah, there is. I hardly ever get the opportunity to train with a spotter, so I use
Yeah, same.
spotter arms. But with a spotter, specifically for bench press, like the amount of energy you save by having someone help unrack, unless you've got a specifically designed bench press with the arms that go back, yeah, it's you perform much better. My shoulders never feel nice unracking with the angle that we have to unrack at with our setup as well,
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah.
So yeah, spotters are really good. And for squats, again, it's just that security feeling of being able to get back up. So that's good. I generally like to spot with two people, so one person each end of the bar. But I will definitely spot someone by myself if I have to. But I just feel better about doing that. Um, so one other thing I wanted to cover just before we sign off, because it's getting late and I'm hungry, um, is mobility. Now, there is a persistent myth in weightlifting with people outside of weightlifting when they look at weightlifters that says that, oh, look at you, you're so big and so bound up, or you've got so much muscle, you're bound up and you can't move. If you are lifting weights correctly, and this goes back to what we were saying about range being one of the variables that you can use. If you are working full range of motion that you are capable of through all of these exercises, your mobility will be phenomenal. Not only
Hmm.
that, you're going to have better mobility. So, just for clarification, the way we explain mobility is strength through a full range of motion. It's not flexibility, which is being able to kick your leg above your head. It's being able to control how high you lift your leg. But if you can do, going back to your example, a full range step up, then you will be able to have great mobility through your hips.
Hmm.
Mobility is incredibly important, and you can use weightlifting to help make it even better.
Yeah, and for some people have really poor mobility, um, and actually adding a bit of weight does improve it. I mean, I've had it a few people. I've got them in, and I've had to reteach them how to squat, because a lot of
Hmm.
people, it's amazing how much they can't like properly squat to death. But having holding like a kettlebell or a plate just in front of them is a really good counterbalance, and they end up squatting a little bit better because of having to need that counterbalance. So using weight for mobility is really important, and it does do a lot of good stuff. People tend to really like not think about mobility and not think about full range of motion. There was a big faff for a while. There was like a fight between the RP guys, the Renaissance periodization guys, about they're all full ROM, everything's about full ROM, and then there's lots of people saying you don't need full ROM. But actually, just for like longevity of training,
Hmm.
having healthy joints and just being able to move right, practicing full range of motion on movements is just you might as well just do it. Unless you're really trying to be, you don't care about it and you just want to move as much weight as possible with little range, fine. But if you're wanting healthy joints and be able to move through space comfortably, focus on full range of motion on every exercise.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just, if you're doing the lifts anyway, don't let the ego stop you from doing them to a range that you're capable of, because in the long run you will be better off, unless you're training to be a powerlifter, unless you're training for that ultimate strength, in which case give yourself some leeway. I highly recommend in your off season then having a phase where you're working on full mobility. And go on.
I was going to say, and in your so especially with like stuff like powerlifting, a lot of people stick within one kind of plane of movement. They stick with just their like up down. They're all stuck in one box. In the off season, work through different planes of motion, moving side to side, like stepping out of that box, so your body, can switch it up. That's really, really important. We don't need to get into what the specific planes of motion are, but instead of just being up down and staying in this box, doing Cossack squats or lateral lunges, lateral step ups, different forms of lunges, twisting as well, anti-rotational stuff in the off season, or just having a block focused on that is going to be much healthier for your joints.
Yeah, and look, doing the movement itself in terms of powerlifting will get you strong, but you're using so many assistance muscles which are kicking in to help that movement that doing all these other exercises, these getting out of the box exercises, will really help those stabilization muscles, and they'll catapult you through any plateau as well again. So yeah, they're really good for that. I wanted to say something about the flip side of mobility because I've had to deal with this quite a few times as a trainer. It's not massively common, but for people who have hypermobility, weight training is massively important because you can train the muscles to, you may feel like it's a good idea to stretch muscles. Like I've seen so many people who think they have tight hamstrings that literally bend over to touch their toes and their knees nigh on poke someone in the eye behind them. That is not a good stretch for your hamstrings. You are 10 times better off lifting some heavy fucking deadlifts to get those hamstrings strong to work in a better range of motion. So it's almost like the opposite. You've got to train your muscles to be functional and strong in a good range of motion instead of overextending them all the time. So it works both ways.
Yeah, I've trained a couple of yoga instructors before who like super flexible, do the splits, do all of this stuff, but couldn't do a bodyweight squat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'd say it is like you can be flexible from here to here. If you're watching this, I'm just showing a distance, so you can be flexible from here to here, but you're only strong from here to here. And when the more flexible you are, the higher capacity you have for injury throughout that whole range of motion if you're not strong throughout that whole range of
Mm-hmm.
motion. So it's all well and good being able to do the splits, but if you're not strong throughout that whole range, then at any point, like things can ping off. So yeah, it's if you're super mobile, which some people are, like you said, we get clients in a hypermobile all the time. Focus on getting strong, but focus on while you're. It can be so easy for somebody who's hypermobile, say when they're doing a squat, to be like uber relaxed at the bottom of a squat, and then everything be kind of like not really in a good stable position. So focus on being strong and stable throughout the movement without just collapsing in on yourself.
Yeah, it's one of the variables you said earlier on, time under tension, tension being the key word here. You want to be able to maintain tension throughout the whole movement. That is the key to mobility. If you want a visual example of this, just think of Jean-Claude Van Damme doing his basically upright splits where he does the kick. He can control every single centimeter of lifting his leg from the floor to having it directly above his head, and he's got control over every single millimeter of that movement. That is what our version of mobility is. I wish I could do that. I definitely 100% can't do that, but that's what we're talking about. That is full mastery over mobility because he still is kind of built like a brick shithouse, and he had control over every single centimeter of his range.
The best ever example I've ever seen of this is Juji Mufu. People who don't know who he is, he's like a fitness influencer, and the first video that made him viral, that like made him famous, is he's stood on a set of chairs and he's sliding them out into the splits whilst holding in the snatch position above his head a barbell with loads of weight on. And he slides out into the splits, holds the split super strong, and his like snatch grip above his head holding a barbell, and it's got quite a lot of weight on. I think it must be like
It's
almost 100 kilos,
insane.
and like full control. And he still now is like uber jacked, like bodybuilder on stage level,
full
jacked.
on massively jacked. Yeah,
Massive, super
steroids,
strong.
by the way. Just so you know, guys,
Yeah.
don't try this at home. He freely admits he's on
Yeah.
a load of stuff. So yeah.
But like super strong as well, lifted some insane weights, and can do backflips, aerials, splits, like all of that sort of stuff. But it's because he's strong through mobility. He's not just flexible.
Good. Guys, we're going to leave that there. There are other things we can talk about that I think we're probably going to cover in other things like recovery and adaptation and stuff like that. But I think we gave a pretty good overview of some stuff, plus some good like places just to get started. So I think if we had to label this, would be like this would be a beginner lifters episode. So we can definitely advance along the line of other things later on down the line.
I would say just a quick overview. If you're starting off, start with 5x5. Hitting just the big main movements, focus on full range of motion, and increasing the intensity throughout the weeks.
Yeah, and that's that. You will learn so much about yourself doing that for 12 weeks that you can then make actual qualified decisions about where to move to next as well. So that's
I'd say if you do it for 6 months, it'd be even better.
I done it, by the way, I done it for 2 years. When I was doing 5x5, I done it for 2 years and I barely plateaued. So yeah, and when I plateaued, I just done what I said, dropped the reps and then carried on. So yeah, it's honestly simple progression system. However, if you do want something more nuanced and you have a particular goal in mind, then reach out to us. We do have our online coaching service, and we also have our community in school, the Adventure Ready Strength Club, which has so many resources and so many training plans that we've got you covered for life. Basically, like you'll never have to worry about another training program again, or nutrition, or mindset. We've got it all.
Happy days. Well, thank you very much for listening, and
Catch you next week.
Sweet. Oh yeah, I'm on Instagram at Horizon Coach Josh. Jack, you're on other stuff.
Jack _ Horizon Strength, I think. Every week.
And you never
week.
You never know what it is.
Never know what it is. But yeah, find us, like us, share us, love us, comment. Just give us everything. All your love and attention, and share like crazy, because we can help people, and we want to.
Yeah. Right on. Bye.
Bye.